To catch everyone's attention, Lloyd stood on top of the mansion in front of a crowd of workers. He shouted, telling them he knew it would be hard to believe, but he declared that he could stop time. He proclaimed to everyone that he would stop time for 1 year for the sake of the construction. Naturally, it seemed impossible for someone to stop time, so the crowd appeared confused by what their master was saying. Lloyd scratched the back of his head, thinking they weren't buying what he was claiming. Still, Lloyd was sure they were all surprised by his sudden announcement that he could stop time. Then, a notification popped up, stating that the title's linked effect, Absolute Trust, was taking place. Suddenly, the former White Lancer head, Valalady Blank, shouted while crying, as though he were praising a god. Valalady shouted to everyone that whatever Lloyd said goes. This White Lancer was more loyal than your girlfriend. Other people also began shouting that whatever Lloyd said goes. One of the workers shouted that Lloyd could summon monsters. Then they started chanting again, whatever Lloyd says goes. Another shouted that Lloyd could even control a bone dragon. The crowd chanted once again, praising Lloyd. Javier just watched these poor fanatics, but who wouldn't go crazy for Lloyd when even demons were obsessed with his face and voice? The fanatics had gone wild, shouting that they would do whatever Lloyd said. Even Lloyd had gone crazy, raising his arms to boost their morale. Javier, on the other hand, looked at Lloyd and the people, wondering in his mind if the villagers were still sane. A window notification popped up, saying that Lloyd had consumed 3,000 RP to freeze time. The entire estate was surrounded by a large sphere, and time outside was frozen. Then, Lloyd's heart began to freeze after using the time freeze skill. He clutched his chest due to the pain, and his breath turned cold. Javier asked his master if he was all right. Lloyd replied, saying he wasn't but smiled crazily, claiming he was just too excited at the thought of building the truth jewel. Many formulas appeared in his mind, formulas belonging to the smartest engineer, Lloyd Frontera. Despite his lack of extensive knowledge, Lloyd revised the design using his simulation skill and eventually completed the perfect blueprint. He planned to create pathways to remove water from the area where the truth jewel would be, then begin the dam's construction. Lloyd knew they were limited by the technology of the time, so he planned to use Spain's Taibai Dam as a model. It is a legendary dam built in the Middle Ages that still functioned. Lloyd was thinking that simultaneously with building the dam, they would also construct the truth jewel, which was the most important part. He smiled at the thought, feeling they were progressing by leaps and bounds. What made him happiest was thinking that soon he would be rewarded for all the hard work he had put in. Then, a voice could be heard in his head, sounding like someone testing a microphone. The voice called Lloyd ugly and terrible at singing, asking if Lloyd could hear him. Hearing this, Lloyd thought the voice sounded familiar. It was the voice of the Dragon King. Verkis said it was indeed him speaking to Lloyd and told him to come quickly, stating that what he had to say was a super emergency. Verkis warned Lloyd that he might not be able to complete the truth jewel. This alarmed Lloyd, and he ran so fast he could outrun the Flash as he rushed to the Dragon King. Javier simply watched his master sprinting away. Lloyd, panting heavily, eventually slowed as he approached the lazy Dragon King, who was lounging on a sofa. Verkis told Lloyd that his neck was stiff and asked for a massage. Still breathing heavily, Lloyd, serious now, asked the Dragon King what he had meant about the emergency preventing the truth jewel from being built. Verkis replied that his stiff neck was the emergency. He warned Lloyd that if he didn't get a massage, he might get really angry and destroy everything. Hearing this, Lloyd's veins bulged in frustration. He had thought it was a real emergency, only to find it was a lazy dragon's stiff neck. Lloyd cursed the dragon in his mind and was on the verge of going Super Saiyan as his hands began to glow with mana. He wanted to beat the lazy Dragon King through the massage. Lloyd asked Verkis if his neck was really stiff, to which Verkis replied that it was in pain and needed a quick massage. Lloyd's face twisted into a level 999 mythical glory rank of ugliness that could even rival the faces of demons in hell. Pouring more mana into his hands, Lloyd planned to massage the Dragon King so intensely that Verkis would scream in pain. The mana in Lloyd's body condensed as he poured it all into his hands. Lloyd became the incarnation of the Demon King, his face crazed with fury. He clenched his hand and gripped the back of Verkis's neck, thinking, "How dare this lizard play tricks when I'm so busy?" He pushed with every ounce of strength, mentally shouting, "Die," while his face burned with the desire to blow the Dragon King into pieces. Yet, despite all his efforts, the Dragon King didn't feel a thing. Verkis asked what Lloyd was doing, wondering why he wasn't putting in enough strength. This made Lloyd even angrier as the veins on his face grew larger. He thought to himself that, after all, the Dragon King was still a dragon, which is why Verkis didn't feel much. Lloyd decided it was alright to go all out now. In his mind, he would become a monster, devouring the screams of others like food. He intended to have a feast by making the lizard scream. Lloyd went crazy, putting everything into the massage, pushing again and again while clenching his fists. He even shouted as he massaged the lazy Dragon King. But the Dragon King remained unfazed, telling Lloyd that his efforts were weak and that he was disappointed in him. Lloyd's face transformed into another meme-worthy expression as he ground his teeth out of frustration. He wanted to beat this lizard, thinking that the Dragon King was driving him insane. Lloyd wanted to tell Verkis that he was the first person to ever annoy him this much. Then, a window popped up, stating that Lloyd had gained a new skill. This caught Lloyd's attention, thinking it might be something that could help him beat the Dragon King. But the new skill was titled Absolute Ugly Man. The system told Lloyd that he was now a being of unbelievable ugliness, regardless of whether he was angry or crying. It informed him that anyone who saw his face would exclaim, "Oh man, what the hell is that ugly face?" Lloyd, shocked, asked the system what kind of skill this was, reminding it that he was considered handsome before he came to this world. The system agreed that Lloyd's face, back when he was in Seoul as Kim Suho, was indeed what Lloyd claimed. But the system added, "So what though? Right now, you look like poop in this world." Lloyd, still in Super Saiyan mode while massaging the lazy Dragon King, was interrupted when Verkis called him. Lloyd asked what it was, and Verkis inquired, hypothetically, if they were to change fate with the Truth Jewel, what would Lloyd do afterward? Lloyd was still wiggling his hand while putting every strength in pushing the neck of the lazy dragon. Lloyd, who was confused, repeats the Dragon King's question to clarify. The Dragon King tells Lloyd that he is asking about what he will do with the Truth Jewel. Lloyd asks for pardon because it seems the question didn't sink into his mind. Then Lloyd says that there is one course he will take. He will destroy the Truth Jewel after using it. This catches the Dragon King's attention as he looks back at Lloyd. Lloyd's face was like someone who is about to poop while he is putting a lot of strength into the Dragon King's neck. He tells the Dragon King that having something like the Truth Jewel would bring nothing but headaches, and it would only get in the way of his life of fun and rest. As the system predicted, the Dragon King, looking at Lloyd's face, says, "Oh man, what an ugly face." After Lloyd hears this, he thinks his face looks like that because of this damn dragon. Hearing what Lloyd said makes Verkis smile. He feels at peace, thinking that it seems the Truth Jewel won't be used for evil purposes. Verkis looks at Lloyd as someone like him, someone who truly dreams of doing nothing. The Dragon King tells Lloyd that it is fine now and that he can leave. Lloyd replies, asking him what he means because he is not done yet. But actually, what Lloyd meant when he said he was not done yet is that he was not finished hearing the scream of this Dragon King. The system pops up, telling Lloyd that he has pushed the function of his mana heart to the limit. Lloyd, who is annoyed at the dragon, starts to get more annoyed. He tells the system to stop it, then asks the system what it is trying to do again. The system says that his mana heart skill has increased in level and that he has already become an advanced sword expert level 1. Lloyd is confused about what this expert means. Then a notification appears saying that Lloyd receives a passive option, which is the Sword Master Syndrome. Now all of his senses have become greatly enhanced. The Dragon King, Verkis, notices that Lloyd is acting strange. So Verkis asks Lloyd what is wrong and if he is okay. But what Verkis says multiplies from what Lloyd hears. It continuously repeats again and again, entering his ears. At the same time, the question starts to feel so strong as it enters his ears, like his ears are about to burst from the loudness. Lloyd bends his knees because of it, and he closes his ears with his hands. He shouts that his ears are hurting. Verkis asks him if there is earwax stuck in his ears. Lloyd, still shouting, says it's not that, but Swordmaster Syndrome. Verkis says he is amazed and congratulates Lloyd, saying that it's nice. This makes Lloyd even crazier as the sound vibrates through his ears. As Lloyd leaves the area, walking in the hallway of the estate, he is still covering his ears, but the noises of animals can be heard by him clearly, from the chirping of birds, the oinking of pigs, and even the rustling of the wind. Lloyd curses, thinking he has so much to do for the construction, which is why he doesn't care whether he becomes a swordmaster or not. Lloyd wonders if he should just use RP to level up his mana heart, but he stops himself, thinking that if he does that, he might not have RP to stop fate. Then Javier appears and calls out to his master, Lloyd. Javier asks if he is experiencing swordmaster syndrome. This question makes Lloyd shout, as those noises are like screams in his ears. This guy has gone crazy with this syndrome, but his ears didn't break when he was singing. Lloyd looks back and raises his hand, telling Javier to be quiet. He tells Javier not to talk to him. Javier is just silent, looking at him. But this time, Javier is so happy, maybe thinking it's time now to take revenge on this crazy master who orders him around so much while being underpaid. Javier wants to explain it in detail. He clenches his fist, excited. Javier says that Lloyd needs to throw himself into silence. He needs to face the extremely sharp and sensitive senses and focus on them. Javier adds that his master needs to pull them close and embrace them until he achieves true silence. But that advice makes Lloyd's ears start bleeding because of the sound vibrations. Lloyd ends up on the ground, covering his ears. Javier doesn't worry about his master and instead just looks at him. Then he starts teasing his master, laughing at him while pointing his finger at Lloyd. He tells Lloyd that he can do it. Lloyd is angry and annoyed at this. He shouts at Javier, asking if that is the face he makes when he cheers someone on. He even tells Javier that he will kill him. But Lloyd notices something. As someone who became a swordmaster, he realizes that right now, he can see so clearly. He plans to look at Javier's face because, at this moment, he feels like he can see even the blemishes on Javier's face. But Javier poses like a handsome model. Lloyd shouts, questioning why Javier doesn't even have blemishes. Lloyd tells Javier that those poses irritate him so much, so he orders Javier to stop. Although Javier pranks Lloyd a lot, he stayed awake for a few nights since he had experienced it before and helped Lloyd get used to the new senses he has. Then, at the construction site, Lloyd looks stressed. A few months have already passed since the construction of the dam and the Truth Jewel is almost complete. Then Javier appears behind Lloyd. He asks his master if he is alright and inquires about the Swordmaster Syndrome. He tells Lloyd that he seems pretty stable, even at the construction site. Lloyd is annoyed by what Javier is doing. Javier apologizes for speaking too loudly, saying he didn't do it on purpose, but on second thought, he guesses that this could be considered a type of training. Lloyd is angry, shouting at Javier to stop it. He asks Javier if he is enjoying this. Javier says he misunderstood and adds that he is really worried about him, but Javier's face is happy, not the face of someone who is worried. He is able to bully his master this time. Javier says he meant what he said. Lloyd just lets Javier be and says that he can see Javier sincerely having fun. Lloyd points his finger at Javier and warns him to wait, as he will show Javier just how terrifying an employer can be. While Lloyd is talking to Javier, a song can be heard in the area. A bright light appears with a song within it. Lloyd slowly looks back, asking what it is. He says he hears some kind of holy singing. Lloyd covers his eyes as the light is so bright. He is speechless because he can't see clearly. There is a person in the bright light that catches Lloyd's attention. It slowly descends and points to the center of the sun. It is an angel with wide wings and a bright light. Lloyd is alarmed, looking at it. The angel slowly says something. He tells Lloyd that it is nice to meet him. He introduces himself as Raphael, the Lower Realm Inspection Bureau chairman and an officer of the Heavenly Realm. He says he is there to tell Lloyd about an enforcement order. Lloyd starts questioning the angel in his mind. Lloyd feels something ominous. Then Gabriel suddenly moves his hand at a fast rate, opening the document that was sent by the Heavenly Realm. He starts reading the enforcement order, saying that the order is for the building owner, Lloyd Frontera. The order is to stop the construction of the illegal building, Aotearoa, and to destroy everything that has been built. Lloyd is speechless and alarmed by what he hears. He starts asking Gabriel what he said again. Now, will Lloyd be able to build the truth jewel and get the answer on how he can contradict fate? But I believe that Lloyd will become another model of the archangel, as he was even able to manipulate the demons in hell. Now going back to where it was Raphael, who was flying and at the center of the sun, made everyone look at him. Workers stopped what they were doing, curious about who that figure above them was. Everyone from every department literally stopped what they were doing. This guy single-handedly halted construction. For every damn thing Lloyd creates, there is always a nuisance disrupting his work. Raphael told everyone that what he said represented the will of heaven. He announced that the construction of Aotearoa must be destroyed immediately. Lloyd told him to wait and asked Raphael what he was saying all of a sudden. Lloyd asked what this was and if Raphael was really an angel. Lloyd didn't want the construction to halt and even asked Raphael to provide proof that he was truly an angel. Raphael asked Lloyd if his name was Lloyd Frontera, and then asked again if Lloyd was still doubting him even after seeing his wings. Lloyd pointed at Javier, saying, "This guy has wings too. Is he also an angel then?" Raphael looked at Javier and told Lloyd that Javier does indeed have the face of an angel. Lloyd looked at Javier, who appeared somewhat proud, which made Lloyd even more annoyed. Lloyd asked Raphael, "If that's the case, how can I trust that this is the will of heaven or whatever you're saying?" He told Raphael that he had gone through so much to get Aotearoa constructed. Then Lloyd asked Raphael if he really expected them to just follow along and move on. Raphael didn't say anything, simply closing the book that contained the order of the heavens. Then he raised his hand like he was Thor or something. A bright light appeared in Raphael's hand as a large hammer formed within it. Not only that, but a light began forming near Raphael's head. It was a halo at the top of his head, proof that he was truly an angel. This alarmed Lloyd, making him sweat. Raphael was serious now, holding that large, bright hammer. He asked Lloyd if he believed him now. All the workers started to watch Raphael, who was displaying the radiant elegance of an angel. Byron exclaimed that it was the golden hammer of punishment, adding that it looked exactly as described in the Holy Book. Byron shouted to everyone that Raphael really was an angel. Not only did it look the same, but there was also a tag on it. Damn, this hammer seems like it was purchased at the Heavenly Department store. Raphael corrected them, saying it wasn't the golden hammer of punishment. The name of the hammer was the multi-purpose official business hammer. Alarmed, Lloyd said it was real, and the details were genuine. Lloyd asked Raphael why the Aotearoa was considered an illegal building, explaining that it wouldn't collapse easily and that they were the rightful owners of the land. Raphael told Lloyd that the truth was that Aotearoa was an abnormal artifact that even looked into the upper realm, or realm higher than the heavenly one, and leaked the secrets of heaven. He explained that on December 6th at 6 a.m. in the 307th year of the mythical calendar, the Great Race War occurred because everyone desired to obtain it. Raphael then detailed the casualties, which shocked both Lloyd and Javier. He said that 4,370,000 beings died and 27,820,000 were injured, with total asset damage estimated to have risen to over 4 quadrillion, 72 trillion, 9 billion, 400 million gold. After closing the documents about Aotearoa, Raphael stated that due to these events, Aotearoa had been designated an illegal building. He added that if it wasn't destroyed immediately, he would personally see to its destruction. Lloyd, who had gone through so much trouble to collect the items and even traveled to other dimensions just to gather the materials, was furious at what he felt was an unjust decision. "It was really unfair to our handsome MC." He told Raphael that it was a ridiculous order and outright tyranny. Lloyd said he wanted to file an objection and strongly opposed the decision. Raphael told him that objections were only accepted through prayers. He told Lloyd that if his prayer was fervent and pure, it would reach the civil complaints room. Lloyd was confused after hearing this and asked Raphael if such a system existed, adding that it sounded pretty good. Raphael confirmed that the heavenly realm is a friendly place, always looking to lessen the difficulties faced by the lower realm. Lloyd then dropped to his knees and began to pray seriously, wanting to take advantage of any chance he still had. This is what Lloyd prayed: "God, I need to borrow the power of the Aotearoa to protect the people important to me. I don't want to lose anyone close to me ever again. Please heed the prayers of this pitiful sheep. All of the people gathered here are filled with beautiful memories and happiness." The angel listening to the prayer was initially amazed, praising Lloyd for his fervent prayer. But Lloyd didn't stop there. He added, "Everyone must stay well so I can enjoy my peaceful retirement." Hearing that last part shifted the angel's mood entirely. This lazy request for a comfortable retirement ruined any chance of building the Aotearoa peacefully. The angel slammed the phone of the heavenly realm, announcing that Lloyd's prayer was rejected. Raphael relayed the message, telling Lloyd that the angel said his prayer was denied. Lloyd, the god of shamelessness, asked why. How dare he ask for a reason when he ruined his own prayer? Raphael simply told Lloyd that his prayer wasn't pure and asked him to destroy the Aotearoa. Lloyd angrily retorted that he couldn't do something like that. Raphael, unfazed, replied that it was fine since he would do it himself. He raised the golden hammer and flew toward the building, preparing to smash it into pieces. As he neared the structure and was about to deliver the final blow, Lloyd shouted at Raphael to stop. But before Raphael could strike, something flew toward him. Alarming the angel, it was Javier, about to slash Raphael with his sword at full strength. However, the angel didn't flinch, swinging his hammer with equal power and slamming it toward the building. Before the hammer could land, Javier managed to block and parry the attack. The force of the clash was so immense that it created a massive shockwave, but Lloyd, of all people, was the one most affected. He screamed in pain, cursing the loud sound, blaming it on his stupid swordsman syndrome. Javier, still standing tall before a high-ranking angel, raised his sword and introduced himself. "I am Javier Asrahan, a knight of Frontera County," he declared. He told Raphael that, as an intruder in their county, he needed to pack up and leave immediately. With a serious glare, Javier warned that if Raphael refused, he would execute him on the spot. Javier's threat wasn't empty, and even Raphael was visibly alarmed. As the two powerful beings prepared to clash once more, someone was running toward the scene at incredible speed. The newcomer saw the two winged figures about to face off. It was Solitas, the young dragon. Alarmed by what he witnessed, Solitas remarked that he had come because he sensed an absurd amount of mana but hadn't expected to see an actual angel. He recalled how, when he was younger, his mother had told him stories about angels. As Solitas watched Raphael wielding the hammer, he understood that the angel was here to destroy everything, which enraged him. The thought of the worst-case scenario, where everything is obliterated, filled Solitas with anger. He thought to himself that if that happened, he wouldn't even get the chance to marry. Solitas had fallen for Lloyd's absurd scheme, believing that the mythical glory rank of the unattractive Lloyd could somehow help him find a wife, despite the fact that Lloyd himself couldn't. Lloyd only pulled off the queen because Queen Alicia seems to have a unique perception of love. Determined, Solitas thought that by teaming up with Javier, a grandmaster, he could drive Raphael away. However, before he could act, the lazy dragon king Verkis, who had been watching the scene unfold without intervening, called out to Solitas, startling the young dragon. Verkis warned him to stop whatever he was planning. Verkis explained that a clash between the heavenly realm, hell, and the dragons could lead to a great war that would obliterate the planet. He cautioned Solitas that as long as the intrusion remained at a smaller scale, like regional skirmishes, it was better to turn a blind eye to keep the world from descending into chaos. Confused, Solitas, seeing Verkis for the first time, asked who the Dragon King was. Meanwhile, workers in the area began to panic as the tension between Raphael and Javier grew. Lloyd ordered everyone to retreat as far as they could, sensing the danger that the situation posed. Raphael, refusing to back down, warned Javier, a grandmaster, to cease his resistance. He told Javier that if he didn't stand aside, he would be charged with obstructing heavenly duties. But Javier, having suffered through countless adventures retrieving precious materials and finding blueprints, was committed to defending the territory and its precious truth jewel. He told Raphael that they both were simply fulfilling their duties, and since neither would back down, there was no point in further discussion. Raphael initiated the attack, swinging his hammer with great force, but Javier skillfully evaded the blow, flying behind the angel to strike his blind spot. Lloyd, observing from afar, was amazed by Javier's skill and bravery, but doubt lingered in his mind. Could Javier really win? Javier launched a powerful downward strike at Raphael's back, but Raphael's halo moved on its own, protecting him by deflecting the attack. The clash between their powers created shockwaves, and once again, Lloyd, although uninvolved in the fight, was the one most affected by the aftermath. Javier, undeterred, shouted as he prepared to unleash an even stronger attack. With one swift strike, he generated thousands of slashes aimed at Raphael. But once again, the angel's halo effortlessly blocked every single one, leaving Javier alarmed at how futile his attacks were. Raphael, sensing victory, offered Javier one last chance to surrender, urging him to give up and abide by the laws of the heavenly realm. Suddenly, Lloyd, seeing Javier in a desperate situation, shouted, telling Javier that he would help. Confused but trusting, Javier heard Lloyd's command to cover his ears. The reason? Lloyd, the infamous greatest singer in hell, was about to unleash his most powerful vocal solo. If this guy joins the TikTok trend of perfect pitch, then he will become a legend. His perfect pitch rendition of Do Re Mi had the potential to not only stun the entire universe but also become a viral internet sensation if anyone had recorded it. Lloyd gathered enough air by inhaling all of it for his long concert to defeat the angel. Javier was sweating because he knew how destructive that voice was, more destructive than an atomic bomb. But on the other hand, Raphael, who hadn't even heard Lloyd's heavenly voice, started to get confused about what this guy was planning to sing. Then Lloyd started singing. That voice was like the screeching of demons in hell, but this guy was actually singing O Sol Mio. But while singing, Lloyd felt something that made him stop. It was actually the sound of his voice. This is friendly fire. He was affected by his own deadly attack. Maybe this is the end of Lloyd's singing career era. Lloyd started falling to his knees, covering his ears and shouting because of the pain he felt when he heard that. Javier started to get alarmed, seeing that the main weapon didn't seem to work anymore. Lloyd became depressed after hearing his own voice due to the amplification of his hearing because of the Swordmaster's syndrome. Lloyd was thinking that all the sounds were amplified because of the syndrome he had, and he was thinking that his singing really sounded horrible. Javier was somewhat disappointed in Lloyd because he wasn't able to release that dragon's roar from his vocal cords. Raphael, who was able to hear the first note, started asking what that voice was. He was saying that it sounded like the scream of an ancient demon. But now that Raphael was distracted, Javier wanted to grab this opportunity to attack the angel. But even without Raphael's full attention, he was invulnerable to any kind of attack since there was a halo protecting him. Now it was time for the angel to release a counterattack. Raphael released a full swing from his hammer, but that didn't reach Javier, as the guy was able to evade it. Javier was shouting as he was about to release his full strength. He was thinking that he needed to go at top speed, and after using full speed, he planned to bypass the halo while finding an opening in it using his own speed. But Raphael released another swing and told Javier that what he was planning was all futile. Multiple attacks from all directions were released by Javier, but they somehow could not reach the angel. Raphael said that the halo of an angel is an absolute blessing. He told Javier that as long as he possessed a pure and righteous soul, the halo would protect him forever. But at one time, Javier was caught by the attack of the angel, as the angel was able to land a perfect hit on him. Although Javier was able to block that attack, he was pushed away, and his direction was toward the truth jewel. Javier was alarmed. He was thinking that falling on the truth jewel should not be happening because if he crashed into it at the speed he had, it would damage it. So he forced his wings to change direction so he could fly upward and avoid the truth jewel. But in that moment that Javier was thinking, the angel took that opportunity as he was able to place himself above Javier. Then he smashed Javier with his golden hammer, pushing the Grandmaster down. That attack made Javier land on top of the truth jewel and somewhat destroyed some parts of that godly building. Javier was coughing as if he had been hit by the strongest attack. I don't know if that was a strong attack because he is a Grandmaster and only a small crack was made after he landed. After this guy's noble acting and storytelling in front of Lloyd Frontera parents, I don't know if this guy is still doing what is the truth. Then the Archangel landed where Javier was lying down. He slowly looked at Javier's face, and he did not say anything about it. But even though Javier was beaten down, he was still handsome, and as he looked at Javier's face, it was angelic and seemed there was no threat since this guy was fully unconscious. Raphael fixed his glasses. He told Javier that if he stopped now, he would forgive him. He asked Javier to please stay down. Feeling that Javier was fully unconscious since this guy didn't even respond made him walk away to continue his mission to fully destroy the truth jewel. Javier peeked at Raphael, who was slowly walking away. But in that moment, Javier slowly stood up while staggering. Raphael noticed Javier and looked back at him at a faster speed. He shouted, telling Javier that he told him to stay down. But Javier, who was wearing a poker face, didn't care about this angel and threw sand at the angel's eyes. The one that protected the angel was his halo and his glasses, and he was even confused about what Javier was doing. But still, that sand started to enter the eyes of Raphael, and he was shouting from the pain in his eyes. He told Javier that he was a cowardly bastard. The halo detected what Raphael said, and it started beeping. It warned Raphael that what he said was a swear word, and a 10-point penalty was given to him. Raphael was quite alarmed by this situation, and he started shaking and sweating because of what happened. He said that a penalty had been placed upon the halo's function. And Javier, who had become like his master, smiled evilly after hearing that and was about to slash Raphael. He told Raphael that he was guessing that this angel was not so pure after all since he swore just now. Javier totally became like his master. Of course, the master was amazed by the character development of his disciple. He couldn't believe what happened to Javier when he was the culprit who made him like that. Lloyd started to question if Javier was always cool like that. Javier, with all his strength, released a strong downward slash toward Raphael. But still, since it was only deducted by 10 points, the halo of Raphael was still protecting him. But that halo was not invincible anymore, as it bent down from the strike of Javier, which made the angel alarmed. The bent halo hit the head of Raphael, making him shout from the pain. Javier released a slash, which Raphael avoided as he was about to release a counterattack. Raphael was about to smash Javier with his golden hammer, but Javier was able to avoid it and was then about to release another attack again. Lloyd was still covering his ears because the clangs of the sword and hammer from the clash created a strong sound, which was too much for him. He started to question if Javier and Raphael were on par now. And what Lloyd predicted was somewhat true, as they were really on par with each other now. All their attacks were being parried easily. But Lloyd was thinking that even if they were on par, it was still a problem. Javier was getting wounded from that exchange. Even though he was a Grand Master, an enemy who was on par with him was still a threat. The same went for Raphael, as he was able to receive some wounds from Javier's attack. Lloyd started closing his eyes. Maybe he didn't want to see Javier struggling too much in the battle of these two strong beings. There would be no clear victor if this continued. So, with all of his might, Lloyd shouted, telling both of them to stop. Raphael and Javier stopped fighting, looking at Lloyd. Lloyd, who was on his knees, started begging Raphael. He began crying, telling Raphael to please stop, asking him to stop hurting his friend anymore. I don't know if this guy was acting or not, but he seemed to think that Javier was really a friend of his in this world. Javier's eyes widened to see his master in a pitiful state, crying for him. But while Lloyd was crying, a window panel started to pop up. Maybe he was cooking up another crazy scheme, which we will know about later. Lloyd told him that he would follow as long as he could promise him one thing. Lloyd cried more and shouted because of grief. He told Raphael that if he didn't build the truth jewel to stop the restoration phenomenon of fate, then the county's people, who were more beautiful than anyone in the world, would become more miserable and sad. The people who had run away from these clashes started to hear the agony that Lloyd had been carrying the whole time. The people began to sadden as well, as they felt what their master was aiming for. It was for them. I don't know if this was really for them or for his lazy retirement life. The people started crying too as they felt the sincerity of their master. Lloyd said that he didn't care whatever happened to him and asked Javier just to make sure they lived happily. He told Raphael that he could even have his life if he wanted to. Raphael felt the sincerity in that speech from Lloyd, so he was silent for the meantime. But a mission was still a mission. Since it was an order from the heavenly realm, destroying it could only affect the small county and not the whole world. He told Lloyd that he apologized because there was no way for him to help him with that. Lloyd said that if that was the case, then he understood. He told Raphael that if that was the case, then it seemed their negotiations were now broken down. As Lloyd was actually begging, it literally touched the hearts of his people from what they heard, and Lloyd was just actually milking them with RP as his RP was increasing rapidly from it. Now, his total RP was 26,701. The system told him that he now had sufficient RP. The system asked if he would like to upgrade to a swordmaster, which would cost 26,000 RP. Lloyd started wiping his tears. Maybe his drama was going to end right now. This bastard's face turned into an evil expression that could even scare the demons in hell. He told the system that he would upgrade to a full-fledged swordmaster. Raphael was alarmed by it, seeing the bright light that appeared. Actually, this bastard's amount of mana plummeted up, and he was smiling like a demon. He could beat Shinra's smile with this. This bastard was the full incarnation of evil and the god of ugly faces. He smiled and laughed evilly as he told Raphael that he guessed it was time to sing right now. Now it is time for the Demon King, Lloyd Frontera, who is the best singer in hell, to have his greatest concert, and the one who will be the first to hear it is Raphael. Poor guy, this will be traumatic. Going back to where it should be, the greatest singer was about to release his first album. The greatest song of all time, dedicated to one angel, the literal angel sent from heaven, named Raphael. He was like Goku, about to go Super Saiyan, as he prepared to release one note from his vocal cords. Javier felt the intense power coming from Lloyd. It was the same feeling he had experienced in the past, like when he became a swordmaster, one level below a grandmaster. Raphael, who had no idea how deadly Lloyd's voice was, spoke arrogantly. He said that he hoped Lloyd would refrain from becoming a sinner who interferes with the duties of the heavenly realm. He told Lloyd that, as he could see, he possessed strength on par with the Grand Master whom he knew well. He added that someone who was only a swordmaster would be no match for him. I don't know if Lloyd was laughing or about to sing, but poor Raphael didn't realize that this wasn't a battle of swords and martial arts. It was a battle of endurance enduring the deadly voice of Lloyd that even made demons in hell cheer at how crazy it was. Javier was ready to release all of his strength, but this time, not for a fight. It was to protect himself. He generated enough aura just to shield his ears from the deadliest concert in the world. He covered his ears and ducked, as if a grenade had been thrown near him. Solistas looked at the Dragon King Verkis. Verkis was casting a spell, which was in the process of activating. Solistas was confused about what this guy was doing. This lazy bastard hadn't cast a spell to protect himself, but instead teleported somewhere, not to a faraway city or country, but this dragon first protected himself from the voice. He teleported to the moon. He figured it was the safest place where Lloyd's voice couldn't reach. While those two were in battle, the weather was quite nice today. The sun was vibrant, and the birds were chirping healthily. Fish swam in the clean lake near the area where the Truth Jewel was being constructed. The fish were healthier and more energetic than ever, able to leap into the clear blue sky. Lloyd was in a maestro pose, the kind of pose a singer takes before releasing the highest note, the hardest one to reach. One line of the song came out of Lloyd's mouth, but a dark thing emerged from his body. It was like polluted air, and anyone who heard it would die instantly. This dark thing looked like black magic that could kill anyone who heard it. The song grew louder and louder, engulfing the entire area near the construction site. The beautiful melody from Lloyd's vocal cords filled the air. If demons had been there, it would have been a feast for them. The sound spread not only to the construction area but also to the nearby mountain ranges of the estate. Lloyd's normal voice was so powerful that it reached the entire city. Even the loyal White Lancers, who treated Lloyd as their god, began to go crazy. They started cursing. People everywhere swore at how insane Lloyd's voice was, and their friendliness toward him plummeted. The same thing happened with other departments. They were going crazy, their veins bulging as they held their ears to endure the madness of his voice. In the final minute of the song, their ears began to burst, and blood spurted out. Their friendliness toward Lloyd hit rock bottom. They completely forgot about their master. They could only utter one word, the four-letter F word, the worst curse of all time. At last, the music Lloyd was singing began to settle down. The black mist that covered the entire area started to fade away. That music was truly a concert, as there was even smoke surrounding it. A swordmaster, a national threat who could be the best warrior of a nation, was singing that was the worst possible scenario. The golden voice, the handsome face, and the crazy mind that was the perfect combination Lloyd had. And that song was dedicated to only one being. That was the angel Raphael. Raphael was speechless. His eyes widened, and he started sweating profusely, his body shaking after hearing the song dedicated to him. He was speechless. This guy hadn't taken cover and was just standing there, directly hit by Lloyd's nuclear bomb of a voice. The birds, which were healthy and enjoying themselves a moment ago, began to fall from the trees, losing their lives. The same thing happened to the fish. They all died innocently. Imagine these animals couldn't even understand human speech, but Lloyd's angelic voice sent them straight to the afterlife. Raphael, who hadn't taken cover, suffered the most. It was a direct hit, and blood started dripping from his nose. He got a nosebleed from Lloyd's golden voice. He could only say one word after hearing the song, and it was the four-letter word that starts with an F and a U. It was full swearing from the angel. His halo detected the curse and warned him about it. The halo told Raphael that he had received 480 penalty points for it. It informed him that he had now exceeded the maximum of 300 penalty points and that during this period of punishment, he would be stripped of all the authorities granted to him by the heavenly realm. Raphael, who wasn't in the right state of mind after hearing Lloyd's voice, asked the halo what that meant, but his wings began to disappear, and his hammer followed suit. He started to get depressed. This was the same thing that happened to other nobles who had faced Lloyd. They were all stripped of their rights. When Raphael looked up, he began to sweat even more. Perhaps what awaited him was worse than being stripped of his powers. But seeing this, I could only agree to sweat more. There was a crazy demon king holding a shovel, waiting for him. Maybe it was time for a beating. No one could escape the craziness of Lloyd Frontera's shovel. But that wasn't the end of it. There was another presence behind him. It was Javier. This pure-hearted butler and guardian was now just like his master. Javier had placed a scabbard on his sword. Perhaps it was the perfect weapon for beating someone. The former angel, now a normal man due to the restrictions, couldn't say anything. He just let out a deep sigh as he adjusted his glasses. He took them off, and his eyes were empty, maybe not realizing what kind of hell was awaiting him. He called Lloyd and Javier sirs with respect and said, "Dear sirs, let's all calm down a little," but the angel was sweating more as he tried to negotiate with the two of them. I don't know if he'll survive this though, since his opponent this time was the god of negotiation, Lloyd Frontera. The next thing that happened was no negotiation. A shovel flew at Raphael's face, flattening it. It was a perfect, merciless hit, but even though he had just received a perfect blow, it wasn't the end. Someone else was waiting to deliver another full attack. Javier, now as crazy as his master, positioned himself for a full swing like a baseball player. That strike also landed on the poor angel's face. But it still didn't stop there. Another swing from Lloyd's shovel was ready. This situation was starting to look like a meme template. Raphael became like a volleyball, getting passed back and forth from side to side. The attacks were non-stop. The demonic bastard, Lloyd Frontera, was enjoying it like he was playing a game that made his heart race faster. This guy was pure evil. But the unbelievable part was that Javier was also part of it. He wasn't angry about enjoying it. He was just angry at this part. And finally, two attacks were about to land at the same time. We all know what happened next. It was a total shutdown for the poor angel, who took the brunt of the assault. The next day, everything seemed peaceful at the Frontera estate. The poor angel had really taken a beating. His body was wrapped in bandages as he slowly woke up, feeling the pain all over. His eyes and cheeks were swollen from the beating he had received. Raphael, still disoriented and confused, began to ask where he was. Lloyd, sitting beside him, greeted him with a soft smile, saying, "You're awake now." In that moment, Lloyd appeared as innocent as a lamb, someone you might believe was genuinely concerned. He looked at Raphael and, with a gentle tone, said that he had been worried, watching over him throughout the night, fearing he might never wake up again. Raphael, however, was skeptical. He questioned Lloyd, asking why someone who had tried to destroy the truth jewel would bother helping him now. Lloyd said that his reason was because he knew that Raphael was not a bad person. Lloyd added that the only problem was that their values were different. He told Raphael that he didn't believe anyone was a villain based on the situation. Raphael pondered what Lloyd said, wondering if it was really true that there were no villains in their situation. But remembering those guys who were so happy while beating him to death, he began to question if that was really the case. Then, some crazy guy slammed the door where Raphael was resting. It was Javier. Lloyd asked Javier what he was about to do this time. Javier raised his sword and was about to smash it on Raphael. The poor angel, who was on the side, was quite alarmed by Javier's violent action. Javier told Lloyd that they must kill Raphael and urged him to let him do it. Lloyd stopped Javier, telling him to stop what he was doing. He told Javier that Raphael was an angel and they shouldn't do something like that. Lloyd then slammed the door, having managed to push Javier out. So Javier became the villain this time. Maybe this was some sort of act or plot created by Lloyd Frontera. Lloyd wiped his sweat as if pushing Javier was too much for him. Lloyd told Raphael that Javier was quite hot-tempered and said he was really having a hard time stopping that cruel side of him. Then he started laughing to ease the atmosphere. But what actually happened was that Lloyd was the one who wanted to smash and beat Raphael. He had told Javier that he wanted to end the angel's life. And Javier was the one holding Lloyd back, telling him that this guy was still an angel. Lloyd twisted the story, making himself seem like the good guy. What a cruel bastard. On the other hand, this made the poor angel believe that Lloyd was a very good person, when in fact, Lloyd was the role model of demons, and Helcorus wanted him to be his successor in hell. Raphael, an innocent lamb, started to get teary-eyed, feeling that someone had protected him. He bowed down and thanked Lloyd, saying he was such a good person. Lloyd told him that what he was doing was nothing and that anyone would do the same. But as he said that, a smirk appeared on his face as another plot formed in his mind. Lloyd thought that just as he expected, Raphael was completely naive, exactly as the novel intended for him. Lloyd laughed evilly in his mind, thinking that this was all too easy for him. Lloyd said that he had heard from the Halo that there was a punishment period for Raphael. He asked what would happen to him during that time. Raphael explained that he would lose all of his powers as an angel and be unable to return to heaven. Raphael then showed Lloyd something. He told him that he could still perform minimal communication with that object in his hand. Lloyd asked if it was a smartphone. Raphael replied that it was not a smartphone, but something called a clever phone. Since clever and smart are almost synonymous, Lloyd remarked that both heaven and hell had a really bad naming sense. Raphael started to get confused by what he heard. Little did he know that this guy had once ruled a group of demons in hell. Lloyd then asked Raphael if that also meant he would try to destroy the truth jewel again once his punishment was over. Raphael said that it was the decision of the heavens, so he would have to execute it eventually. He explained that it was unavoidable for the sake of order and peace in the lower realm. Lloyd pointed out his statement and asked Raphael if it was really for the sake of the lower realm. He questioned if Raphael was sure it wasn't just some form of violence against the people of the lower realm, who were expected to follow all the decisions of the heavenly realm because they wouldn't know any better. This caught Raphael's attention as he realized that what Lloyd said was somewhat true. Lloyd remarked that Raphael had always executed all of his missions perfectly up until now because that was what needed to be done because it was deemed correct. He then asked Raphael how someone like him, from the lower realm, would feel about these missions. He asked if Raphael had ever tried to listen to their side or put himself in their shoes. Lloyd reminded Raphael that he had once said the heavens were there to relieve the lower realm of its difficulties. Then he asked Raphael, what about those who face even more difficulties because of the heavens' decisions? Raphael understood what Lloyd was getting at. He bowed his head and told Lloyd that he was correct. He admitted that he had never tried to listen to what the people of the lower realm had to say. In that case, Lloyd suggested a solution. Since Raphael would be staying in their country for now, Lloyd asked if Raphael would consider studying the lower realm a bit more. Hearing this made the naive angel happy. He asked Lloyd if he could really do that, adding that he would comply as long as it wasn't an inconvenience. Lloyd smiled and told Raphael that he guessed it might make him uncomfortable, apologizing for not thinking that through carefully. Then, Lloyd pulled out a large stack of papers hidden in his coat. This guy always carried contracts with him. That was expected from the god of negotiation. Lloyd, who looked like a demon at this point, showed the poor angel the contract. He told Raphael that if he signed the contract and fulfilled a few of his requests, he would gladly let him stay in their place. The poor and naive angel was so happy about it. He smiled while signing the deadly contract created by Lloyd Frontera. Lloyd was somewhat satisfied that the naive angel signed the contract so easily. He thought that with this, he could solve a couple of problems at the same time. This evil demon smiled like a villain, thinking that by using Raphael, he could take the Eye of Summer from the queen. By obtaining that item, he could use it to stop the freezing of his heart. What cruel fate awaited the poor angel? Would he survive this contract, or would Lloyd become a new model for the angels? The morning is clear and beautiful now that the war between Javier and the angel Raphael has ended. The singing concert of Lloyd Frontera, which sounded like the screams of demons from hell, has also ended. Meanwhile, Yang Yang and Bibiong are playing in the river where the construction of the Truth Jewel is constructed. It seems that Lloyd Frontera's to Pakmon have become closer. As it is already early morning, Raphael, looking different this time, starts to wake up. He then puts on his upper clothing to begin the day. Of course, he picks up his glasses, which perfectly complement his attire as an administrative angel. These glasses, however, failed to protect him from the sand that Javier had thrown at him. To complete his look, he fixes his hairstyle the classic look of someone who works as an administrative officer. Now, everything is perfect, shining, and splendid. He begins his run, which may be part of his routine to understand humans in the lower realm better, as Lloyd had told him. Being a very gentle angel, Raphael starts attracting animals, like Snow White from Disney. He greets the deer, rabbit, squirrel, and birds. He remarks that the skies are filled with the beautiful singing of sparrows today, and the birds start chirping in response. In fact, they are talking to the angel. Raphael seems to understand them, and the birds actually request to hear him sing. This makes Raphael blush, as he is shy about his singing. He admits feeling a little embarrassed, but since he ought to repay the kindness shown to him, he agrees to sing. I hope Raphael is different from the best singer in hell, Lloyd Frontera. Raphael takes his position, preparing to sing the first note. When he starts, the melody is so amazing that all the animals are overjoyed. They are jumping, and their eardrums are not bleeding in contrast to what Lloyd's singing caused. The farmer at the Frontera estate feels uplifted after hearing Raphael sing. He says that listening to an angel's voice every morning warms his heart. His wife agrees, and she begins to question why their young master Lloyd's singing sounds so different. These two, who were the most loyal fans of Lloyd Frontera and even built a statue of his legendary ugly face, seem to be changing sides after hearing his singing voice. It seems Lloyd's popularity is dropping. The former captain of the White Lance says that although Raphael was an enemy at first, he has now become a source of strength for them in the mornings. Therms, who was once a rebel leader, agrees. He also questions why the young master Lloyd's singing sounds so different. Why is everyone questioning Lloyd's singing when he was the greatest singer in hell? Even Byron, the loyal knight of the Frontera estate, asks the same question. While he is amazed by Raphael's singing voice, he doesn't realize that Javier and Lloyd are actually behind him, listening. When he looks back, he is shocked to see his master. Byron nervously asks Lloyd if he heard all of that. He begs Lloyd for forgiveness, explaining that after they heard his horrifying singing a few days ago, they've been having nightmares. He says their hearts are being purified by Raphael's singing, and they can't help their reactions. Lloyd says he understands and appreciates Byron's honesty, but he asks them to stop talking about it. Lloyd is clearly annoyed because everyone is talking about his singing when he himself is actually the best at it according to demons. He says that Raphael is strangely upsetting him. Javier tells Lloyd that it seems he is jealous that everyone likes Raphael. Javier then gives Lloyd some straight talk, saying that an angel is better than a demon who shrieks from the pits of hell. Lloyd becomes even more irritated and asks his bodyguard if he's implying that he comes from hell. Lloyd reminds him that it was the angel who attacked them first, asking if he knows that. Javier replies that there's nothing they can do now since Raphael has already melted everyone's hearts. Javier told Lloyd to look at them, but looking at them, his loyal Pakmon are now so happy with Raphael. Gaming, Podong, Hamang, and Bengal seem to be enjoying themselves while they are with Raphael. Lloyd, who was watching, could only label his Pakmon as traitors. Javier asks him if he dislikes him that much, why not just drive Raphael away? Lloyd said that he already signed the contract, and he can't get a lot from Raphael either. It seems the deadly contract Lloyd made is backfiring on him this time. But before that, there was an agreement between Raphael and Lloyd. Lloyd starts explaining some things Raphael needs to know. He called Raphael and told him that there are two major things Raphael must do for him. Lloyd said the first thing Raphael must do is inform him in advance of everything the Heavenly Realm plans to do following this event. Raphael raises his phone and tells Lloyd that doing that is not a problem. He says that this clever phone can receive news from the Heavenly Realm quickly and precisely. Raphael tells Lloyd that he hopes Lloyd will be able to live a more saint-like life with the clever phone in the lower realms. Lloyd said that what Raphael just said is so fitting of him as an angel. For the second request, Lloyd says there is something he needs to confirm with Raphael first. He asks Raphael if, during the period of punishment, he is still able to prove that he is an angel. Raphael shows his form, with his angel wings, halo, and the light accompanied by the sound of singing from the heavenly realm. He asks Lloyd if the proof he shows him is enough. Lloyd says it is seriously convincing that he is an angel. He then asks Raphael if he wasn't stripped of his authorities given by the heavenly realm. Raphael replies that while all of his powers may be gone, his appearance still remains. Lloyd smiled and said that it's all good now. He told Raphael that he needs him to cooperate with him as best as he can with the plan he is about to tell him. I don't know what plan this might be, but since it was created by the master manipulator Lloyd Frontera, it must be a masterpiece of a plan. Going back to where Lloyd and Javier were, Lloyd told Javier that the Heavenly Realm is having a meeting because of them taking a firm stand. But Lloyd assured him that it is obvious that meetings among the higher-ups will take a long time, so they need to ask the Truth Jewel as soon as possible before the meeting ends. Then everything will be fine, even if they destroy the Truth Jewel. Lloyd smiled, saying that the Truth Jewel will be completed in a few hours. But Javier was silent, maybe thinking about something else. Javier called Lloyd and told him that what he was about to say might be a little random. Lloyd looked back at him after he said that. Javier told Lloyd that his singing is better than Raphael's. I don't know why the hell he said that, but maybe Javier became a demon because only the demons treat Lloyd as the greatest singer in hell. Lloyd was speechless at first, but as the thought sank in, he told Javier that what he said was really random. He asks Javier if he knows how ridiculous he sounds right now. Javier, with a poker face, said that Lloyd's singing truly sounds horrible. It has the same impact as a great disaster, one filled with the curses and shrieks of a demon from the hells of hell. Lloyd told Javier that he is pretty eloquent with his words right now. It's like Javier has become a minstrel or something. Javier became serious this time and told Lloyd that this might be the reason Lloyd doesn't really like singing. He said that Lloyd always feels embarrassed and guilty after singing. But Javier praised him because, despite all of that, he still sings as loud as he can. Lloyd endures every embarrassment for the sake of saving people. Javier seriously said that if there was any kind of singing that could be called the most noble, it would be that. Lloyd's eyes widened after hearing that. I don't know if he was touched by Javier's words, but he started sweating and smirking. Lloyd told Javier that he must have gone crazy for saying that, but Javier stopped him from continuing and told Lloyd that even though he said that, he still doesn't like and doesn't want to hear Lloyd singing. Javier said that his face is already frowning just at the thought of it. Even with that compliment, Lloyd was still annoyed at what Javier had told him. I don't know why these two seem so awkward in expressing their feelings for one another. Lloyd started to walk away and told Javier that after hearing his last sentence, all of his goosebumps went away. But even without either of them saying it, the reflection tells it all. Lloyd smiled while walking away because of that compliment. Javier also smiled at the thought. This must be the ending of this novel, but if it turns into boys' love, I will stop creating recaps on this. Going back, we are now nearing the end of this arc as Gaming was carrying the last piece of material for the construction of the Truth Jewel, and he was flying toward the building. The lazy bird Gaming was ordered by Lloyd to drop the Kier aura at the top of the structure. He released it mid-air, and the Kier aura transformed into a shiny magical thing. Then it slowly sank and settled at the top of the Truth Jewel building. It formed into water that continued to slowly fall on the Aotearoa building, like a fountain. Then a Windows notification popped up stating that the truth jewel, Aotearoa, has been completed. It told Lloyd that he had now obtained RP for completing a legendary achievement. A total of 8,500 RP was obtained. Lloyd ordered his workers to open the water gate. They opened it as Lloyd ordered, and the water started gushing in, but in an orderly manner due to human intervention. Then the system announced that the construction of the Frontera Dam, the largest concrete dam in the history of Laurasia, is now complete. With this, Lloyd received another bonus RP. He obtained 1,500 RP, and his total RP is now 10,071 RP. The water reached Aotearoa and started to rise slowly. After a short time, the truth jewel, Aotearoa, fully sank to the bottom of the water. Lloyd also jumped into the water to see if Aotearoa was ready for its purpose. Then the power of Aotearoa, which answers any questions, seemed to work this time as it slowly formed into something. Lloyd smiled and raised his hands because finally it was time to hear the answers he had been looking for the longest time, the answers that could save everyone. As Lloyd looked into it to ask the truth jewel, it started shining brightly. Then a song could be heard. The building had some sort of background music, and it was singing La 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 or something. In a singing manner, the truth jewel greeted Lloyd and told him that it was made to speak only the truth. It then introduced itself as Aotearoa. Lloyd was disappointed by this effect, thinking that the author of the novel of Iron Blood Knight really does a lot of half-useless things. Aotearoa asked Lloyd if he had any questions. However, it told Lloyd that answers wouldn't be free. It asked Lloyd if he would reveal one of his deepest secrets. Lloyd was confused and asked Aotearoa what secret it meant. The truth jewel said that it wanted a secret that only Lloyd knew in the whole world. Javier also jumped into the water to look for his master, but Lloyd was deep in thought. He considered telling the truth jewel who he really was, but stopped, thinking it wouldn't work since Javier already knew that. He began to wonder if any secret would work. Lloyd ended up telling the truth jewel an embarrassing secret. He said that after he finishes his number 2 and wipes the sides, he rolls the toilet paper as much as possible to make it thin and sharp. Then he sticks it in, turns right 5 times, and turns left 5 times. He repeats this a total of 3 times. I'm not sure what Lloyd is talking about, but maybe he's describing the choreography of how he wipes his butt after taking a dump. Then the truth jewel released fireworks into the sky. The fireworks exploded, and it made an announcement showing Lloyd's face, then proceeded to tell everyone Lloyd's secret word for word. Javier stood there looking up, expressionless, while Lloyd turned red, covering his face in embarrassment as the truth jewel shared his secret. With a serious face, Javier asked Lloyd how deeply he sticks it in. Lloyd angrily told Javier to forget everything he said and act like he doesn't know anything. Lloyd then asked Javier why he was even there in the first place. Javier replied that Lloyd had once told him a powerful impact wave would occur when it was activated. Although somewhat shy, Javier admitted to Lloyd that he was worried. Lloyd, confused, wondered why Javier had been acting so differently recently. It's not like anyone is dying. Why does this scene feel like someone is going to die? The truth jewel reminded Lloyd to ask his question. Lloyd was silent, perhaps gathering his resolve before hearing the answer. He finally said that he had come from a different world to this one. He explained that he had done a lot of things and saved many people who were supposed to die or face tragedies, but the restoration phenomenon of fate kept trying to reverse their fates. He asked the truth jewel to tell him how he could stop it. The truth jewel began shining brightly as it searched for the answer to Lloyd's question. A large whirlpool started forming around the truth jewel, just as predicted by his engineering simulation. Javier used his wings to shield his master from the impact. Lloyd was transported to a pitch-black, dark place. The truth jewel told Lloyd that this was a space where only Lloyd and the truth jewel existed. It said that only Lloyd could hear the answer to his question. After hearing that, Lloyd thought the truth jewel was speaking differently. The truth jewel addressed Lloyd, or rather Kim Suho, and revealed that Lloyd Frontera was supposed to be dead but didn't die. Additionally, Lloyd had stolen the position of the protagonist, which was meant for Javier Asrahan. The truth jewel told Kim Suho that the world was trying to kill Lloyd, restore the fates, and return the protagonist role back to Javier. Because of the bug known as Lloyd Frontera, the world was unable to locate the protagonist and suffered a severe error. It explained that fate had gone berserk in an attempt to restore the original story, even at the cost of destroying probability. In order to pacify the world and end the chaos, the story had to be reset. The truth jewel revealed the biggest twist of the story. A clear protagonist had to be decided, either Lloyd or Javier. The story would reset when one of the two died. Lloyd, or rather Kim Suho, fell to his knees as the truth jewel told him that there were no other options. Damn! This story is getting darker as it progresses. Javier, on the other hand, was calling his master, who was on his knees, lost in thought. Lloyd was shaking, and he seemed in shock as a dark, eerie aura surrounded the area. Javier called out to his master, but there was no response from Lloyd. Lloyd was groaning as if he had seen the god of death or a shinigami or something. Javier shouted, telling his master Lloyd to please breathe. Then Kim Suho started to remember the time when he was working in construction. He thought about how he had worked hard without resting, carrying the hope that things would get better one day. Javier kept shouting, pleading with his master to breathe. The bodyguard was so worried now. He asked his master if it was because of his heart. Javier shouted, asking if Lloyd's heart wasn't feeling well. Meanwhile, the light of life in Kim Suho was slowly fading. The light could only tell poor Kim Suho to hang in there a little longer, that things would get better one day. Javier continued shouting to wake his master up. He gasped, asking his master if his mana flow was okay, and if it was in a normal state. He begged his master Lloyd to wake up this time, but Lloyd was moving toward the light that must be for the afterlife. He was reaching for it, thinking he just needed a little more time, just a little more. Javier, in desperation, was using mana to control and revive his master, but Lloyd now looked like someone on the verge of death, raising his hand to reach the light. However, that light seemed to disappear, the light of hope that gave him the motivation to keep going and wait a little longer. His face was on the brink of death. Damn! This is a roller coaster of emotions from one of the best manhwa ever created. Why won't they let the MC rest when all he wants is a simple, lazy life?